Yeah, true.
Fly is asking me, was this created solely by Republicans or was this a joint venture with Democrats? What are you referring to, Fly? Was what created solely by Republicans? Yeah, Radiant, they literally have NSA staff members that are sent to like live at these customer organizations. The surveillance state is not a product of the Democrats or the Republicans. It's completely different. So the surveillance state is not elected. No one ever votes for them. Nobody ever voted and said, we want, General Hayden to be in charge of the NSA. Or, well, technically they're confirmed by the Senate or whatever, but these, as Snowden has made the point several times, these are career bureaucrats. They're in the agency for 20, 30, 40 years. The politicians are like reality TV. This is how I view politics. Politics is like the reality TV veneer on society. So it's where you're supposed to direct your attention. So you're supposed to believe that Trump or Clinton is this like massive decision that, like, by having your one vote every 4 years, a theatre, says Jenny Lynn, by having your one vote every 4 years, like that you're somehow having some like impact in political engagement. That's total bullshit. Like, excuse my language, but you're allowed to vote on American Idol every week. Like, do you think the technology doesn't exist for you to vote like more than once every 4 years? Of course it does. But the system doesn't want you to have a say more than once every 4 years. And then it wants to make sure that your once every 4 years say is restricted to one of two clowns that they, one way or another, are going to benefit from either of them getting in. So politics is just reality TV. It's something to fill the news hours, and your attention, and the drama and the tabloid nature of it are indicative of that. Like, really, when does any politician ever talk about, the things that matter?
Yeah.
Very, very, very rarely.
Yeah.
And even more rarely do they actually do something about it. So the surveillance state they call them the deep state. They talk about the deep state being like the actual government, the government that you don't see.
Yeah.
The government that serves under both Democrats and under Republicans. And there are NSA documents that openly state that they actually don't care whether it's a left-wing or a right-wing government, because they'll be there before them and they'll be there after them. A president's going to be there for 8 years, and an NSA employee is going to be there for 35. So they really could care less, right? I mean, if there's a candidate that actually is going to make their life difficult, they might care a bit, but they still know they're going to rule the country, they're going to rule the system regardless.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see examples of that too in real life. I think it was last year, there was a party in the Hamptons that had, Jared Kushner, Ivanka, and then all of the really, really establishment left-wing people, like from the Washington Post and a lot of these establishment media outlets, and the Democrats all schmoozing in this same party. And it just really, like, that's when the mask is ripped off and you see this, if you want to use the right-wing term and call it the swamp, or just, whatever you want to call it, that, like, the oligarchy, that's the actual plutocratic class that rules this country, and they are not divided by politics or political lines in the way that it is so much hyped and presented in the media. And that's exactly why you have stuff like like the stuff that Trump says, that's his, people are hysterical about that. But then on the other side, you have social issues that do not relate to actual policy being hyped as the major difference and a major dividing difference between the political right and left, when actually those differences don't translate into reality. And so then you have articles like we wrote at Decipher Media that talk about issues like Yemen, showing how the economy of death that America runs is bipartisan, because you have Obama and Trump pursuing the same policy, supporting Saudi Arabia and Yemen. So
Right, and
That's
so this week we saw, and Snowden did a bunch of brilliant tweets about it.
yeah,
This week
exactly.
we saw the Democrats voting for the Republicans to have increased spying powers, just like
Absolutely.
the Republicans voted for the Democrats to have increased spying powers.
Yeah, exactly. That's a fantastic recent example of that for sure. It's perfect. I mean, that shows that if the Democrats, literally, if the Democratic Party had anything substantial against Trump, they would never have done this. If they actually cared about Trump and actually hated him in the way that they so much hype in the media through stuff like Rachel Maddow or through the Washington Post, through the New York Times, all these outlets and pundits that make you feel like hysterical about Trump, and then they just vote to give him all these powers. So the reality is so different to the narrative that you see in the media. Anyway, but
And I was actually really happy that a reality TV star was elected president. I wasn't happy that it was Trump, but I was happy that it was a reality TV star, because I actually thought to myself, what can be more perfect than this? To have literally a reality TV star creating the reality TV. I'd also refer back to the document that we found where NSA is bragging to their employees about how they were behind the Iraq war intelligence and Colin Powell's speech to the UN, Bush's speech to the UN for them pushing for the invasion of Iraq, and Ambassador Bremer's Saddam mentioned policy decisions in Iraq. So once again, we see, and then NSA was also serving Obama and Clinton for 8 years. It really makes no difference. The people who stand up and give the speeches at the UN are just the reality TV show. The people who are put up as candidates for president are the reality TV show. And once every 4 years, you get to have your entire life consumed, or in the case of this most recent election, it's like our lives are still being consumed by it. But you get to have your say in the reality TV show once every 4 years. It's like Survivor, but there's only 2 candidates.
Yeah, and they make a really good pretense at hyping the idea that the red and blue teams are different, but they're on the same show. And it's, and and I think I've said this before in a different stream, but it's even in studies by really high level, Ivy League universities have done a study. I think it was Princeton, but I may be wrong on that. But they showed that that business interests, specifically business interests, have far more impact on policy and decision making than voters. So it's actually in university studies are openly stating that democracy as we conceptualize it in America does not exist. It doesn't work that way. It's functioning as a plutocracy or an oligarchy. That's literally how it is. So, it's just not. And that's why so much effort is put into the make-believe and the charade of the political parties being different from each other and having some sort of opposing view. That's the important thing to them, is to make sure that you think that there is a difference between voting Republican and Democrat. But I think Lee Camp has done a really great job at talking about that constantly as well. And some other people as well.
Brilliant. He's totally brilliant with that. I've got to admit, he's really good at that. Really consistent in his messaging against the entire reality TV. And a lot of the comedians are. Who was it? I was saying to someone the other day, the best news sources. Jimmy Dore, I think, 2 pointed.
Yeah, Jimmy Dore.
It's the best news sources that you can find these days are all comedians.
Exactly, and and both of them have done a fantastic job talking about that exact issue, about this charade and the reality behind it.
And of course, there's two things. One is, what really scares the system? What are all of these guys really afraid of? They're afraid of Occupy. They're afraid of 99% of people getting together and going, nah, the system's bullshit, we've had enough.
Exactly.
No more of it. So what do they do to combat it? Aside from beating, gassing, mass arresting people, stalking them and targeting them, what they do is divide and conquer. So the whole red team, blue team is literally divide and conquer. So in 2011, we all knew the political system is broken. I mean, that's literally the message that was coming out of Occupy. They said Occupy didn't know what Occupy was about, but Occupy was saying the system is broken, it's a sham, it's a scam. And that message resonated with millions of people all around the world.
Exactly.
But red team, blue team is no longer about the system is broken. It's about hate the blue team or hate the red team.
Yeah, and if you're not on a side, then there's something wrong with you.
And that's been the saddest thing for me over the last year, is seeing, like, coming from a background where I'm on the ground at protests against the government, protests where we are opposing the state intelligence agencies, protests where we are literally, it's a group of protesters facing the police. And then you fast forward to 2016 and you have a group of protesters against a group of protesters.
Yeah, true.
And when you see that, when you see one group of citizens against one group of citizens, you are literally viewing divide and conquer. So, like, you know, for all of the like Nazi this or the free speech that or the whatever, what we're actually viewing is two sectors of society that have been separated, cleaved in two, and turned against each other.
Absolutely.
And so neither of them are right, because both of them are looking at each other instead of looking at the system.
Exactly. Perfect way of putting that. Definitely.
So we need to, like, we'll know that we've progressed when we're not looking at each other, we're looking back at the system.
Exactly. And I think a lot more independent media voices are talking in that sense. And I think that it's really wonderful when you have all of these people that are in the independent media refusing to be red team, blue team, and actively pointing out the reality and the false dichotomy of the political system. So. And that's, you know, again, why you see so many people being demonetized and censored. Again, just like you were saying with Occupy, I mean, the backlash against that anti-establishment voice as opposed to anti-Republican or anti-Democrat is huge. The backlash is massive.
Yeah, look, we know who is oppressing us, and it's not a subgroup of citizens.
And I think,
the system.
Absolutely.
And it's sad but true that now we kind of have to go backwards. I feel like as a society we have to go back to 2011 when we can remember who the true enemy is, because the true enemy is not each other.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people who actively went to Occupy Wall Street and had their entire lives changed by the experience. So
yeah, it was absolutely a life-changing, defining experience. I completely